के साथ फाइट करने में कोई स्टार्ट हो रहा है।
Do anything of great damage. They're meant to harass, slow down, and give warning to the rest of the army. You also notice they're kneeling, which makes them a smaller target. And one of the most common questions we get asked is, why on earth did they stand up 200 years ago? Well, it's the muskets. With the muskets of this time period, you have to load them using the ram rifle. And the easiest way to do so is standing up. So if you want to get more
red वाली और ये वाले हम
So as the British pushed against the American camp, American units nearby rushed forward to join into the action. In the confusion, many of them got jumbled up, lost their officers, and began listening to other officers, because anybody could give them commands. And this breakdown in command made the American forces a lot less coherent in the way that they could resist. Fearing that it might be a larger attack, many of the forces further flung out of the American camp refused to move, believing that they could be part of an attack at any moment as well. And so they hunkered down. At the far end there by some of the British forces, volleys was another way that we made the musket a more effective weapon, standing up and firing en masse. And many people, again, it comes back to our modern sensibilities, so standing up and appearing to take turns firing seemed like the best idea. But quite frankly, yes. The muskets of the time period are smoothbore flintlocks. I mentioned those rifles earlier. Only a small number of troops had those rifled muskets. It was cheaper and faster for a soldier to load and fire if he was using a smoothbore. But that means accuracy is out the window. At a good, well-trained soldier, 50, 60 yards, yeah, he can hit what he's aiming at. But the rate of variance meant that at 100 yards, you potentially could miss a target 9 feet in any direction. Helps counteract that problem. You're using volume of fire. It also counteracts another problem, because as you've been watching, you may have noticed sometimes when the soldiers pull the trigger, nothing happens. Being a flintlock means it's a piece of flint striking a piece of steel to create a spark, ignites powder in a side pan, which travels through a touch hole into the main charge inside the barrel. That's a lot of steps, and it's exposed to the elements. Not to mention, black powder is extremely temperamental. The infamous fog of war. Now, probably the most common question everyone wants to know is, why do the British wear bright red standing in the field? Well, the thickness of that smoke, a bright uniform identifies half the men on the battlefield as friends. The idea was it's a bright and blue, but you notice there are green-coated troops directly behind me. There's some Americans in gray. What do you think happens to them when it's red versus blue? Well, unfortunately, they get shot at by everybody. Friendly fire was a serious problem throughout the war. In fact, during the Battle of Stoney Creek, there was an American cavalry unit that attempted to launch a charge in the darkness against the British. As the charge forward began hacking and slashing with their sabers, they quickly realized they accidentally charged into an American unit. Friendly fire is a serious problem, so if you want to survive, bright uniform and stand up. Now, I should ask, we had a good loyal Canadian. They're over there fighting for the Americans. I get them every year. But the Canadian Volunteers was actually a unit raised mostly out of the Niagara, but they had some local people, including a man by the name of Abraham Markle, who became second in command. He was actually a member of the legislature for much of this area during the time. So, gotta be careful sometimes of those elected types. And they raised about 150 men who served throughout 1813 and 1814 And these men fought hard. And that I can hear the artillery banging away from the hillside. During the battle, there was an American battery right in the center of their forces that was firing canister shot into the darkness. Now, cannonballs alone are bad enough. Guns like this were tested during the period, and at a range of 450 yards, they could pass through as many as 13 to 19 men. A canister is worse. Imagine you will, a burlap sack, a tin can that's filled with musket balls. They're about the size of a marble made of lead. And when you fired it off, it basically turned it into a giant shotgun. Men who were at the receiving end and somehow survived said it sounded like locusts descending upon the pharaohs of old. And when it struck men, it sounded like fabric being torn. Now, the British Army unit that was taking the lead in the fight is actually right in front of us now, soldiers of the 49th Regiment of Foot. For those of you who paid attention in grade 7 history class, that's General Brock's old unit. He was the colonel of it when he came to Canada in 1803. The 49th served extensively throughout the Niagara and throughout the War of 1812 and earned many nicknames. In the aftermath of Stoney Creek, during the skirmishing, they would earn the nickname of the Bloody Boys and the Green Tigers for their fighting against American skirmishers in the woods. Now you'll notice one of the soldiers of the 49th in front of you has got a pike, large spear, and a lot of people ask, well, what are you doing carrying a pike out on a black powder battlefield? But sergeants would carry them, and that would be kind of a marker. So you could look across, see where the pike was, you knew where a sergeant was, you knew where to rally if things went bad. But also the sergeant was going to use it sometimes as encouragement, even leveling it and helping push men into battle and steady them if they had to. The 49th had a benefit of having a very good sergeant in battle, sergeant by the name of Fraser. In the darkness and the smoke, confusion reigned supreme. Both sides grasping each other in the dark, and the British using it to their advantage. Remember, the total American encampment had almost 4,000 troops. There's only about 700 British, Canadian, and Indigenous allies out on the field. So they were heavily outnumbered, and they were hoping the darkness would cloak their numbers as they pushed into the American forces. Remember as well, as I said, the Americans spread out their forces, so much of the army was just standing around waiting for someone to give them orders. Unfortunately for them, Generals Chandler and Winder had rushed forward to the sound of combat, and in their confusion, they fell into British hands. Chandler was captured first. Winder attempted to raise a defense for himself as the British pushed forward. The 49th, Sergeant Fraser, I mentioned, leveled a bloodied bayonet straight at him as Winder leveled his pistol to him. Fraser, in a firm voice that only a sergeant can muster, said to him, "You stir." The American had never met an Indigenous person, had never dealt with their culture, and as a result, the only way they learned about it was from hearsay, sensational news articles, and books that would put lurid pictures into it. As a result, the average American believed that a warrior of the Grand Nation was a fearsome monster that would gobble you up if you got the chance. And of course, we know that's absolute nonsense. They're human beings, but they're the allies. To the 49th, off in the distance with the artillery pieces. They pointed them out. The order was given, fix bayonets, take the guns, and they charged forward. As luck would have it, Winder's last order before he was captured was he ordered the guns to stop firing. And the British charged into the guns. And as luck would have it, the gunners withheld their fire and were overrun. Big game, huh? Far into the Niagara Peninsula. The Battle of Stoney Creek was a turning point in the War of 1812.
A sudden retreat, they all turned back, gave up Stoney Creek. Stoney Creek, Stoney Creek, light up the night, take up the fight, Stoney Creek.
On May 3rd, 1908, a soldier's plot was consecrated. And on August 1st, 1910, at Smith's Knoll, a lion's monument atop a stone cairn was unveiled as a memorial to the soldiers who fought and died on this battlefield.
Only bones remain from so long ago. The grave together a desert road with the ghosts of soldiers who cannot sleep. Forever remember that night in Stoney Creek. Stoney Creek, Stoney Creek. Light up tonight, take up the fight.
Battlefield Monument, unveiled June 6, 1913, stands 100 feet tall to commemorate a century of peace between Britain and the United States.